My sister forged emails to get me evicted from home. Years later, 12 years ago, my world was shattered when my family, led by my sister Sophie, decided to throw me out of our home. The reason? They labeled me a traitor for finding a way to fund my college tuition without their help. I was 20, ready to embark on my college journey, but suddenly found myself homeless. This was all orchestrated by Sophie, the family's golden child, who always managed to overshadow me. Sophie, 5 years my senior, was the apple of my parents' eyes. Her achievements were met with grand celebrations. An A on a test warranted a party. Meanwhile, my accomplishments, even an A, were met with indifference, as if they barely registered. Growing up, I internalized that no matter what I did, Sophie would always be the star. When she enrolled in a prestigious university, my parents spared no expense: tuition, a condo, designer clothes, you name it. But when it was my turn, and I got accepted into a renowned college in France to study history, their support vanished. They flat out told me they couldn't afford my tuition. Fine, I understood, college is expensive. What stung, though, was their refusal to even co-sign a loan. I wasn't asking for a full ride, just a little help to avoid a lifetime of debt. Their excuse: they had already paid for Sophie's education and were now focused on their own future, specifically a small business they were launching. Their savings, they claimed, were tied up in that venture. It felt like a betrayal. They had no issue splurging on Sophie, but when it came to me, they suddenly turned frugal. Desperate, I reached out to my Aunt Caroline, my father's older sister and a successful neurosurgeon. Unlike my parents, she was warm and approachable, though there was always an undercurrent of tension between her and them, especially my father, who seemed to resent her success. I hesitated to ask Caroline for help, knowing my father would lose it if he found out I went behind his back. But with no other options, I called her and explained my situation. Without a second thought, she agreed to cover my tuition, asking why I hadn't reached out sooner. I begged her to keep it confidential, and for a while everything seemed fine. My tuition was paid, and I was set to start college. Then Sophie ruined it all. I still don't know how she discovered I'd asked Caroline for help, but she did, and she couldn't let it slide. She blew it out of proportion, turning it into a family crisis. One evening, after hanging out with friends, I returned home to find my belongings packed into boxes: clothes, books, even my mattress. My parents sat in the living room, faces stern, while Sophie stood there, smug and triumphant. It felt like I'd walked into a twisted intervention. My father tossed a stack of papers at me, demanding an explanation. Confused, I looked at them and realized Sophie had gone to extremes. She'd fabricated emails between me and Aunt Caroline, making it seem like I was betraying the family by leaking details about their planned business in exchange for tuition money. She'd hacked into my laptop, found real emails and doctored them, likely with Photoshop, to paint me as a traitor. I was floored. I tried to explain it was all fake, but my parents wouldn't hear it. They stood there, accusing me of stabbing them in the back. No matter how much I pleaded, they believed Sophie, as they always had. It was like I ceased to exist. They told me to take my things and leave immediately. I was kicked out based on a complete lie. I begged them to reconsider, not wanting to burden Caroline further, but they called me a traitor and cut me off entirely. With nowhere else to go, I showed up at Aunt Caroline's doorstep, carrying just a few boxes and the clothes on my back. She welcomed me without hesitation, treating me like true family, something I hadn't felt in years. I'll forever be grateful for her. That night still haunts me. Walking into my home to find my life packed away, my parents glaring at me like I was a criminal, and Sophie's smug grin, knowing she'd won. Standing on Caroline's doorstep, my life in boxes, I struggled to process how I went from being part of a family to homeless in a single night. Deep down, I wasn't shocked. My parents had always prioritized Sophie, but I never thought they'd go this far. Caroline, bless her, didn't pry. She saw my pain and offered her home for as long as I needed. Living with her felt strange at first, waking up in her guest room, surrounded by unfamiliar walls. But over time, it became more of a home than the one I'd grown up in. Caroline and I grew close, talking about everything. She revealed things about my parents I hadn't known. She'd kept her distance from them for years, only showing up at family events out of duty. She told me my father's resentment toward her started long before I was born. Caroline's success as a neurosurgeon, her happy marriage, though her husband passed young, and her fulfilled life made my father feel inferior. Their relationship turned into a competition, with him desperate to outshine her in the family's eyes. His envy, it seemed, spilled over into how he treated me. Caroline had seen it for years but stayed quiet to avoid making things worse for me. Now, living with her, she filled in the gaps, helping me understand why my parents always favored Sophie and dismissed me. It all stemmed from a toxic family dynamic I'd been blind to. Living with Caroline was a relief, but I couldn't fully relax. I kept expecting my parents to call, or Sophie to show up, maybe even an apology. But weeks passed, nothing. No texts, no calls. At first, I was furious. How could they discard me like I was nothing? Eventually, the anger faded into numbness, my mind shutting off the pain so I could keep going. Caroline never pushed me to talk, giving me space to process. She even helped me prepare for college, ensuring I had everything I needed before leaving for France. Without her, I don't know how I would have survived. The silence from my parents was deafening. You'd think after kicking out your child, you'd at least check on them, but no. About 6 weeks later, Sophie sent me a text. "Hope you're doing okay. Don't leave your laptop lying around." No apology, just a taunting jab, reminding me she'd orchestrated my exile. My blood boiled. She was gloating. I wanted to fire back something sharp, but knew it'd be pointless. She'd only revel in it. So I blocked her number and tried to move forward. Despite the hurt, I kept hoping for a message from my parents, an apology from my mom, or even a passive-aggressive email from my dad. Nothing. Caroline became my rock. More than just an aunt, she was my confidant, my true family. I began to see how dysfunctional my parents were, obsessed with molding Sophie into their perfect daughter while ignoring me. When I was preparing to leave for France, my father sent a curt text. "Good luck in France." No apology, no explanation, just those 4 words. It felt like a slap. I deleted it and didn't respond. Caroline drove me to the airport, hugging me tightly and saying she was proud of me, believing I'd achieve great things. It was the first time a family member had said that to me, and it hit hard. As I boarded the plane, I felt like I was leaving behind not just my home, but the part of me that craved my parents' approval. I decided I didn't need them anymore. I had Caroline, my future, and myself. If they wanted to reach out, fine, but I was done chasing people who didn't value me. Life in France was a fresh start. I settled into college, made friends, and for the first time, my family wasn't consuming my thoughts. They lingered in the background, but I focused on my studies and building a life free from their drama. Things were going well until, years later, after I'd graduated and returned to my hometown with a great job, my mother called out of the blue. I was reviewing work notes in my apartment when her name flashed on my phone. I thought I was seeing things. After 3 years of silence, why now? Against my better judgment, I answered. "Hi, it's your mother," she said after a pause, as if I wouldn't know. I stayed silent, waiting. She stumbled over her words before saying, "We need to talk." I scoffed. Now she wanted to talk. Curiosity got the better of me. "About what?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral. "Your father and I want to see you," she said, her voice shaky. I knew this wasn't about missing me or guilt, it was about need. "Why?" I pressed. After another pause, she admitted, "Your dad and I are going through a tough time. Things haven't been easy since the pandemic." There it was, money troubles. Caroline had mentioned their business was struggling, and the pandemic likely made it worse. But I wasn't about to play savior, not after what they'd done. "Okay," I said coldly. She continued, "Your sister Sophie's been managing things, but she's—" I cut her off. "Let me guess, Sophie messed it up." Her silence confirmed it. Of course, Sophie had fumbled. She was always more about appearances than substance, and now their blind faith in her was backfiring. "Things haven't gone as planned," my mother admitted. "We need help." I laughed, unable to hold it back. After kicking me out, believing Sophie's lies, and ignoring me for years, they had the nerve to ask for my help. "Unbelievable," I muttered. "What's so funny?" she asked, confused. "You're serious. You think I'm going to help you?" I said, my anger rising. "You kicked me out, believed Sophie's lies, haven't spoken to me in years, and now you expect me to drop everything." "We're your parents," she said, her voice trembling. "We made mistakes, but we need you." I shook my head. "You didn't just make mistakes, Mom. You threw me out based on a lie. You chose Sophie over me. I don't owe you anything." She fell silent, clearly unprepared for my defiance. When she spoke again, her tone was sharper, entitled, "We're still your family, you owe us that much." That was the final straw. "I don't owe you a damn thing," I said icily. "If you need help, ask Sophie. She's your golden child, remember." I hung up before she could respond, my heart racing but a strange relief washing over me. I'd finally said what I'd held in for years. They could handle their mess without me. I called Caroline that night and told her everything. She wasn't surprised. "They've leaned on Sophie for years," she said. "It was only a matter of time before it fell apart." Our talk solidified my resolve. I'd made the right choice. My parents had chosen Sophie over me, and now they were reaping the consequences. For the first time, I felt truly free. I didn't need their validation. I had my own life, and I wasn't going back to their toxic world. Update 1. After that call with my mother, I thought I'd closed the door on the family drama. I was proud of standing up for myself and making it clear I wouldn't be their fallback. But I underestimated Sophie's knack for stirring trouble. About 3 weeks later, on a quiet Saturday, I was tidying my apartment when someone knocked. I don't get many visitors, so I was curious. Peering through the peephole, I saw Sophie. For a moment, I thought I was imagining things. What was she doing here? She hadn't contacted me in years, except for that taunting text, and now she was at my door acting like nothing had happened. My instinct was to ignore her, but Sophie's persistent. She wouldn't leave easily. I opened the door, and before I could speak, she flashed a fake, cheery smile. "Hey, it's been a while," she said, as if we were old pals. I stared, caught off guard. "Yeah, it has. What are you doing here, Sophie?" Her smile didn't waver, but I could tell she was trying to charm me. "I wanted to talk," she said, tilting her head. "Can I come in?" I should have said no, but curiosity won. I let her in but didn't bother with hospitality, no offering a seat or a drink. She was lucky to be in my space after what she'd done. She glanced around, commenting, "Nice apartment," trying to make small talk. I ignored it. "Okay, Sophie, what do you want?" I asked, cutting to the chase. She sighed, feigning exhaustion. "Mom told me about your call. She's really upset, you know." I raised an eyebrow. "Upset? She kicked me out, Sophie. What's she got to be upset about?" She rolled her eyes as if I were the unreasonable one. "Look, I'm not here to rehash that. We both know you've always been difficult." I nearly laughed at her audacity. "Difficult? You forged emails to get me thrown out. That's difficult." She waved it off. "That's old news. I'm here to make things right." I squinted, suspicious. "Make things right," she nodded, acting like it was the most natural thing. "I know things got messy with the family, and maybe I overreacted, but it's time to move past it." I couldn't believe her nerve. "You think you overreacted?" I said, keeping my voice steady. "You ruined my relationship with our parents, lied about me, and now you're acting like it's no big deal." Her smile faded, frustration creeping in. "I didn't come to argue, I came because I need your help." There it was, the real reason. She wasn't here to apologize, she needed something. My jaw tightened. "Go on," I said. "I've been trying to keep the business afloat," she admitted, dropping the fake sweetness. "The pandemic hit hard and it's not enough. Mom and Dad won't admit it, but we're about to lose everything." I crossed my arms, unmoved. "So, you want me to bail you out?" She shifted uncomfortably. "I'm not asking for a handout. I thought we could work together. You're doing well, right? I figured you'd want to help the family." I almost laughed. She was guilt-tripping me into saving the business she'd tanked. "You figured wrong," I said flatly. "Sophie, you destroyed my life, turned my parents against me, and now you expect me to forget it all and save you." "No," she blinked, stunned. "But we're family," she stammered, losing her confidence. I shook my head. "We stopped being family when you set out to ruin me." She went pale, clearly not used to being denied. After an awkward silence, she stood, her voice cold. "Fine, if that's how you want it, that's how it'll be." "That's right," I said, holding my ground. "You made your choices, Sophie, now deal with them." She stormed out, slamming the door. I stood there, the tension draining away. Part of me wondered if I'd been too harsh, but the memory of her betrayal erased any guilt. For the first time, I felt in control, free from her shadow and the family's toxicity. Update 2. I thought Sophie's dramatic exit would be the end of it, that she'd finally gotten the message I was done with their chaos. But I underestimated her persistence, and my parents. A week later, on another Saturday, there was a loud, insistent knock at my door. I had a sinking feeling as I approached. Opening it, I saw both my parents standing there, my father looking uneasy, my mother with a determined glint in her eye, like she was ready to fix everything by force. I sighed, leaning against the doorframe. "What do you want?" My mother forced a smile, trying to keep things civil. "Can we come in and talk? We need to sort things out." I wanted to slam the door, but I figured they'd keep coming back if I didn't deal with it now. With a groan, I let them in. They stepped inside, glancing around like they expected more than my modest apartment. My mother sat on the couch, patting the seat beside her like I was a kid she could soothe. "I'll stand," I said firmly, crossing my arms. "All right," she said, her smile strained. "We know things have been tough between us." I raised an eyebrow. "Tough, that's what you're calling it." My father spoke up, his voice gruff. "We didn't come to argue." "Then why are you here?" I asked, not hiding my irritation. "Sophie tried, you tried, and I made myself clear I'm not helping." My mother's smile wavered. "That's not why we're here. We want to apologize." I nearly laughed. "Apologize for what? Kicking me out, believing Sophie's lies, or ignoring me for 3 years?" My mother's face tightened and my father shifted, clearly uncomfortable. They hadn't expected me to push back so hard. "We know we made mistakes," my mother said softly, "but we're family and family sticks together." My patience was thinning. It was the same old family card, as if it erased everything. "You're only here because you need something," I said bluntly. "If the business hadn't tanked, I wouldn't be hearing from you. Don't pretend this is about family." Silence hung in the air until my father spoke, his voice raw. "You're right," I blinked, caught off guard. "What?" "You're right," he repeated, exhaling heavily. "We messed up. We believed Sophie, pushed you out, and didn't think twice. Now things are falling apart and we're desperate." I wasn't expecting that honesty. My mother, though, looked like she hadn't planned on him admitting it so openly. "I appreciate the honesty," I said after a pause, "but it doesn't change anything." My mother jumped in, her tone sharper. "It doesn't change that we need you. You owe us after everything we've done for you." There it was, the entitlement. They thought I owed them because they were my parents, as if years of neglect and favoritism didn't matter. "I don't owe you anything," I said coldly. "You chose Sophie over me, threw me out without checking if I was okay, and now you want me to save you? That's not how it works." My father stayed quiet, staring at the floor, ashamed. But my mother wasn't done. "We're your parents," she said, her voice rising. "We raised you, took care of you, and now you're abandoning us?" I shook my head, almost pitying her. "You didn't take care of me, Caroline did. You chose Sophie, and now you're stuck with her. That's on you." My father put a hand on her arm, stopping her from escalating. He stood, looking me in the eye. "We understand," he said, his voice steady but sad. "We won't push you anymore. We just had to try." For a moment, I felt a pang of sympathy for him, but it faded when I remembered their betrayal. "I hope you figure it out," I said, opening the door. "But I'm not part of it." My father nodded, accepting it. My mother shot me a look, part anger, part desperation, but followed him out when she saw I wouldn't budge. I closed the door and stood in the silence, letting it sink in. I'd stood my ground, and for the first time I felt truly free. Thank you for watching my story. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and press the bell icon. Stay tuned for more real-life stories, get more experiences.